Young Turks, everybody, welcome to the show. Ben Mankiewicz. Cenk is in New York, doing, of course, MSNBC. He will be back early next week. Man, it is early here in Southern California. They're not kidding. 4:30. The good thing is traffic just runs very smooth. Of course, we're going to spend a lot of time today talking about the disaster that is my gambling on the NCAA tournament. Okay, we won't talk about that, but whew, that was a rough day yesterday. Thankfully, there's actual disasters around the world for me to pay attention to. JR, did you any success there? You don't gamble, though.
I don't gamble.
I mean, neither do I, but if I theoretically ever thought to, I would have lost some money yesterday.
I have a new, I'm sorry about my voice, first of all.
No, first of all, let's not kid ourselves. It's very sexy. You sound like Suzanne Plachette.
Sound around, it's a mix between like sexy, raspy, and like 13-year-old puberty. But it's fine.
No, I wish you hadn't said the last part.
This is not sexy, that's why. The thing is, I stopped doing fantasy football. Last time I filled out an NC tournament bracket was in 2000 maybe. So but the thing I miss about those is the trash talking.
Yeah.
So at least my new obsession is tweeting about all the things I'm thinking as I'm watching the tournament.
Welcome to why Twitter is successful.
Yeah. I finally figured out because I didn't get on for a long time. Now I understand.
Oh my God, disaster yesterday. I picked 7 games and I lost 6 of them. And while all that was going on, UCLA was blowing a 23-point lead in 8 minutes against Michigan State. But they held on merely because the game isn't 40 minutes and 30 seconds. Okay. Obviously, very serious news, though, to talk about today. It appears that every day until this thing is settled, there's going to be more depressing news about Japan and the nuclear reactor at Fukushima. The death toll now in Japan is at 6,500, just over 6,500, 6,548, 10,354 are missing now in Japan. Obviously, a good chance that the death toll rises significantly. It will rise significantly. At the plant there at Fukushima, right now, of course, the situation remains incredibly dangerous. The focus is still on the facility's number 3 reactor. What we are now saying is that the evidence we're having from our fixed-wing aircraft, from the helicopters, and our pictures from satellites indicate that the water being dumped on that to try to cool down the reactor's spent fuel is just simply not working. Doesn't mean it's not going to work, but it's not working right now. So all of that is incredibly a huge downer. But by the way, calling it a downer, a dramatic understatement. But what struck me about this, and what I know that would really bother me if the situation were happening here, was just a little item that I heard about and then read about earlier this morning. Shockingly, there is a time this morning that was earlier. So the U.S. Navy, the 7th Fleet, is saying that they have sent 100 nuclear, biological, and chemical firefighting suits and masks were delivered from the USS George Washington to the government of Japan this morning for use at Fukushima. Now, how much would it disturb you if we had this terrible disaster here, which is obviously possible? We have 20 plants here in the United States that are built the exact same way that the Fukushima plant is built. How much would it bum you out if, while we were dealing with this disaster, a similar disaster, an inability to predict what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes at a nuclear plant, and fears of a meltdown and a major, if not 3 Mile Island-like, worst case scenario, Chernobyl-like disaster? How much would it disturb you if we had to get 100 firefighting suits and masks from another country? I mean, you think we'd be like, oh, it's no big deal. Canada gave us some suits, France sent us some suits, or Japan sent us some suits. How could the people who made the Walkman not have enough suits to deal with this crisis? I mean, that little item, that little fact right there tells me that they are totally not prepared for this. Now, I don't think you need that fact to tell you that they're not prepared for this. You've watched television. But again, 100 nuclear, biological, chemical suits delivered from the USS George Washington by us, God bless us, from the 7th Fleet to the government of Japan this morning to help guys get in there and do their job. They don't have the suits. Maybe the suits were destroyed. But again, they need to be somewhere where they wouldn't be destroyed. Man, it is, I don't know, I found that to be an incredibly depressing piece of news, and I'd be outraged if I lived in Japan. Although, if I lived in Japan, obviously you'd have other things to worry about. But I found that to be sort of a little stunning piece of information. All right, so obviously you want to follow the events in Japan on a minute-by-minute, hour-by-hour basis, but take that little nugget of information with you, because it's devastating. The other issue is, well, there are many other issues with Japan, but I'm fascinated by the disconnect between the distrust that the Japanese people have of their government and that they look to us for answers at a time when Americans have never been more distrustful of their own government. And I think it's interesting that a Western power still looks at us. Sorry to call Japan a Western power, but you know what I mean. That a country still looks to us as sort of a bastion of truth, which seems to any American who's experienced life here since 2000 incredibly unlikely. Anyway, the conditions at the plant there at Fukushima continue to deteriorate, and the main issue that appears to be not so much what is exactly happening at the plant, because the fact is, anytime somebody like me or somebody on CNN or somebody on MSNBC updates the situation, it changes 5 minutes later, and that's the issue to me, near as I can tell, is forget how many millisieverts per hour are being released, and the measure now is 20 per hour, and normally a person would be exposed to 3 per year. Obviously, it's a very serious situation. Obviously, we should be worried here on the West Coast about how much radiation, to what extent the radiation, how much the radiation is dissipated by the time it gets here. All those are relevant questions to be answered. Those seem to be being answered reasonably. What the Japanese don't have figured out, what the Japanese government does not have figured out, is what's going to happen next. And that is the issue, is the incredible instability that we don't know that we're going to get through Friday without seeing another explosion, without hearing about the number 2 reactor is actually in worse shape than number 3, or number 4 is in worse shape than number 3. It's not knowing. And obviously, when you're dealing with a nuclear reactor, you pretty much want to know. Okay, so enough about that. Good stuff coming up on the show today. Sharon Angle announces her bid for the House seat in Nevada being vacated by the guy running to replace John Ensign, who, of course, is retiring for the Senate. And her ad it's really special. She's running for Dean Heller's seat. He's running for John Ensign's seat. So Sharon Angle in Nevada runs for the House, and she has released an ad announcing her bid. And if you can hear her over the incredibly cheesy after-school special music, God bless you. But here is Sharon Angle. We think she's at her home, someplace that is made to look like her home.
Something
here.
Posing as her home.
It's probably.
I mean, you can check the background. It's a lovely scene. I think her sugar and spices are right behind her.
She should do it in front of a casino. Okay, we get it. It's Nevada. So anyway, here's Sharon Angle making her announcement. It is, not surprisingly, incredibly painful.
Families across Nevada are discussing losing their homes, unemployment, and making ends meet. I know that's what I've been talking about with my children and their families because of the state of the economy. The 2010 election was bittersweet. Conservatives had some victories, but we still face obstacles from Democrats in Congress and in the White House. The Obama administration has made it clear that it intends to pursue unconstitutional legislation like Obamacare, job-killing policies, new regulations, and a federal spending increase that will paralyze our economic health.
So, I love so many things about this. I like that, I get it that you guys call it Obamacare. I got it. But don't act like he calls it Obamacare. Dangerous initiatives, dangerous unconstitutional initiatives that Obama is passing like Obamacare. Do you not get when you hear her that this person is not as smart as the person to her right, or to her left, or behind the camera, or next door? I mean, by the way, just so before we finish the rest, let's finish the ad, and then I'll come back and I'll make fun of Sharon Angle some more.
New regulations and a federal spending increase that will paralyze our economic health. And the Democrats in Congress have pledged their support for this agenda. That's why today I'm announcing I am running for the United States Congress. The effort to bring the people's voice back into government did not end in 2010. I'm Sharon Angle. I approve this message, and I'm asking for your support. I need your help.
Who's going to give her help? I know people will. Those ads where somebody just sits at her kitchen table and she's got the coffee mug there, it just feels so wildly inauthentic. Man, she's not drinking coffee. They're shooting a commercial. There's no coffee in there. And if it is, it's incredibly cold. And she's got both hands. Just stop it. For the love of God, stop it. It reeks of inauthenticity. And what's wrong with this country, among the many things wrong with this country, is that until she announced that she was going to run for this seat in the House, for Dean Heller's seat in the House of Representatives from Nevada, that there were discussions about whether she would run for president of the United States, saying that she was investigating. Back in January, she said, I have lots, asked about the running for president. She said, I'll have lots to say on that. I have options for the future. I'm investigating all my options. Well, okay, you know what? I'm keeping my options open as to whether I'm going to challenge Barack Obama in 2012. I'm just keeping my options open. I'm talking to some people. You know what? It could go either way.
I think it's changed. I remember way back in the day when I was a kid, and we'd say things like, you know, you can grow up and do anything, JR. You can be the president of the United States. That's not a very prestigious thing anymore, apparently. It's something anybody can really, anybody can do it, even if you have no idea what the hell you're doing or what you want to do, because it's becoming sense. And I think it's a reflection of how politicians, what their motivation is. It's not about what they know how to do and how to figure things out and how to solve problems. It's about catering to certain people who actually run the country. The president isn't part of running the country anymore. He's a part of being told what to do. I don't know necessarily for this one, but our last one was.
Well, that may be true.
It's why they're good with Sarah Palin running, because they like empty people that they can just pump into whatever they need to carry out a different agenda.
How can we have a serious conversation with people who think it would be a good idea for Sharon Angle to run for president? She decided back in February last month against a run. Well, how did that conversation go? Did they just huddle around? Was it serious? I don't know. We got the pros on one side is that I'd like to be president. The cons, that I'm a freaking moron. I don't know. Which way do we do this?
I'm sorry, dude. If you are smart, it's now a negative. Or you're just an elitist. You think you're so smart.
That's right.
You're supposed to be stupid to run for president now.
Yeah, you're right. And that's my problem. I'm too smart to be president. So this is a woman, just in case you've forgotten, who, as she ran against Harry Reid and was mercifully defeated in 2012. She said that the city of Dearborn, Michigan is under Sharia law. Dearborn. Under Sharia law. And she also said the 9/11 hijackers came to the U.S. through Canada. President of the United States of America. I was going to save this for the end of the show, but since we're talking about people running for president, maybe we should include this now. Donald Trump. I feel like we should have a break first before you hear the greatest clip of the day. Donald Trump also wants to run for president, and he could do it because there's a lot of great things about Donald Trump, and nobody breaks down the great things about Donald Trump like Donald Trump. We'll be right back.
What is this music? I feel like I'm on a local news set right now.
This one was purposely, though.
Yeah.
Good morning, Los Angeles. I'm Anna Kasparian. Today, a local dog finds itself in a conundrum after eating another dog's food.
You had it until you used the word conundrum, which would never be used in local news.
That's true. That's true.
They'd be like, conundrum? I don't, what's that? Yeah, we don't know what conundrum means. No, that's a different one than you played earlier, right? No, he played one earlier. It already JR said it was like a Bruce Springsteen song. It was a horror. Seriously, I'm gonna. And it was it was totally like, good morning, Oklahoma City.
I love this royalty-free music. It's great.
Yeah, totally. So you're updating us on a story from yesterday.
So yesterday, Cenk and I covered a really important story on a woman in New Jersey who is fighting for custody of her baby after Child Protective Services took the child away from her because she refused to sign a pre-consent form to a C-section while she was in labor. So a lot of people who saw that story didn't like the way we covered it, and I think it's important to go back to it and emphasize stuff that I mentioned in the story but didn't really emphasize enough when we first covered it, okay? So people said, look, there's more to the story than meets the eye. Okay?
This was back in like 2006.
This is back in 2006, but the reason why this story is coming about now is because of the fact that this woman has appealed the court's decision. I mean, she's gone to court over this. The court decided, no, the hospital did the right thing. You shouldn't have custody of this baby. She just recently appealed, and the court sided with the hospital yet again. Okay, so that's why this story is in the news.
Not permanently yet. They say it's like an ongoing process, but we're not prepared to take this kid out of...
Exactly. Right. It is an ongoing process. So one thing that people keep mentioning is the fact that this woman was basically mentally unstable. Like, she had issues with her personality. She received psychiatric help 12 years prior to delivering the baby. Here's the truth.
By the way, if you can take a child away from a woman because there are issues with her personality, well.
I know, exactly. Yeah. And what I mean by that is the hospital claimed that she was erratic, she was irrational, she was extremely difficult to deal with during the delivery. And, you know, I mentioned that during the story yesterday. And basically, she was giving the doctors a really hard time, okay? They would want her to put the oxygen mask on, and she was not cooperating with that. She was a huge problem. She was a pain, okay? Okay. So that's what the hospital had an issue with. But anyway, so details are coming out about her history with psychiatric care. And it turns out that 12 years ago, she was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Even though she was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, I still don't think that's grounds to take a child away from the mother. A lot of people suffer that. In fact, a lot of women suffer that after giving birth. Okay, so I wanted to throw that out there.
So the argument then that was made, that so far what you've read is that the idea that she's unstable.
She's unstable.
That's really what it's based on.
Right. So people are saying, look, she's mentally unstable. I could see why they would want to take the baby away from her. No, I'm not buying that at all. The reason why the hospital is pushing for, for her to have the child taken away from her is because she would not cooperate when it came to the C-section.
And they want C-sections.
They want C-sections, and I'll explain why right now. So first of all, let me just state that right now the national C-section rate in the U.S. is 32%. Okay, the World Health Organization says that it should only be at 15%. This particular hospital that this woman was delivering the baby in has a 50% C-section rate, which is tremendously high. Okay, so you're probably asking yourself, well, why is the C-section rate, unnecessarily high in the U.S.? It's because doctors can charge insurance double for C-sections. So if you look at records and you look at the past, C-section rates have steadily increased throughout the years. Okay, and the World Health Organization is like, why is that happening? The C-section rate should only be at 15%.
Do we know the medical reason why doctors give it? I mean, because they're not going to be like, no, the insurance pays double.
No, they don't say that. They say that the baby is in significant distress and they need to perform a C-section to save the baby's life.
Right, in the specific case, but do we have an explanation of what, so 1/3 of babies are in significant distress, 32%?
That's what doctors claim.
I know that my pregnant friends who both have kids a little over a year, that also, like, there was, if you had one C-section, your second kid, now the belief is that you should have a C-section, if I'm remembering that correctly. I believe that's the case.
Really? I didn't know that.
But only if you had the C-section the first time, then they want to have the C-section again in future kids.
You know, that's interesting because I read a lot about the C-section just to see how invasive it was. Because look, this woman delivered the baby vaginally and it was safe. It was a healthy baby. There were no problems, okay? Doctor said, look, you have to have the C-section. You know, this baby is in significant distress, okay? If you don't do it, you can die, the baby can die. And she's like, yeah, not buying it. I'm not going to sign this pre-consent form. It doesn't make any sense. Let me attempt to deliver the baby vaginally. If we really run into problems, fine, I'll sign the form, we'll do a C-section, right? The doctors didn't like that. So of course when they're testifying in court, they're like, oh, she was terrible. She was really hard to deal with. She did not cooperate. I don't know if I'm even buying the doctor's testimony.
Well, let me play devil's advocate there, because obviously if it's framed that way, then there seems to be no question. But the doctors could reasonably say, no, this kid is in distress, and we need to take it out this way. And she's like, no, I don't want to do it. And then they're like, okay, we'll try, but we're taking gigantic risks.
Right.
And then they pull it off, but that doesn't mean that their decision to, you know, you at some point you're like, okay, the odds just went from 98% successful with a C-section and we're at 31% successful vaginally. Right. We're going to have to cut you open. And she's like, no, no, no. And then they succeed anyway. This is my, I felt the need to do this.
Succeed anyway.
Yeah.
If only it was that easy.
Yeah, you're fine. Here it is. So I don't know. I'm sure that's the doctor's argument.
Right. And here's the thing. Here's the question. Does that qualify as child abuse? Because in order to have custody taken away from you, you have to abuse the child. So the question here is, was that child abuse? And I mean, she didn't even have the opportunity to abuse a baby because as soon as she gave birth to the baby, it was taken away from her immediately.
Well, I would think that if you're unwilling, you could certainly make an argument that if your baby was in distress and you were unwilling to take regular, normal, accepted medical steps to make the baby healthy, to have the baby born healthy, that one could argue, that's obviously what they've argued.
Right.
What would be the incentive, though, of court after court after court in New Jersey, because of what, the power of St. Barnabas Hospital? I mean, it's just one hospital. So
right.
I'm curious why the courts keep ruling against her.
Yeah, I'm curious about that as well, and it's because, you know, she had a couple psychiatric evaluations after she gave birth, and they found out that she had psychiatric treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder. And, you know, that definitely played a role in the decision, and at the same time, the doctors are saying that she was erratic and irrational and very difficult to deal with, and they're really concerned about the safety of the child. So, you know, that plays a role. And they keep siding with the hospital, and they keep siding with the doctors when it comes to this case, which honestly I don't agree with. I know that post-traumatic stress disorder is serious, and you need to, you know, have help and treatment for it. But come on, they took a baby away from a mother and put it in foster care. I don't agree with that at all. She didn't do anything to abuse a child. I think that it's like a preemptive strike, you know? It's like, well, she could abuse the child, so since there's a possibility, let's take the child away from her.
It's not just the hospital now, of course. It's the welfare. It's the welfare agencies in New
Right.
Jersey who are now also saying that the kid should be kept in care and revoke the penalty. And then the courts keep ruling for it. It's interesting, but it says here she was successful at an appeal hearing reversing the lower court's decision. But then in its ruling, the Superior Court in New Jersey says the kid can't be lost in the process. The kid is the beating heart at the center of the controversy, and the kid is entitled to the benefit of permanency with parents who hopefully will be in a position both physically and mentally to sustain her. And then they say that process can't be made yet. In the interim, she stays with the foster parents.
Right. So look, I mean, these are all important factors that play a role in this story, and they might change your opinion. But based on what I've read about her, past, I haven't changed my opinion at all about this. I don't think that her suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder is enough to take the child away. I don't think her failing to sign that pre-consent form is enough to take a child away. I just don't agree with it.
I have two final points about this. One, they should send the baby to Cuba. That would solve the problem. Because that's what we do when there's like a battle for
a child.
Right, for custody of a child, eventually you send the kid to Cuba. That seems to be what happens. And then about the C-section, you looked up C-section to see whether it's invasive.
Oh, I have, yeah.
Yeah,
I got to read it to you. It's
like
amazing.
It's like getting gutted.
Risks to the mother increase with each subsequent C-section because the surgery raises the odds that the uterus will rupture in the next pregnancy, an event that can be life-threatening for both the mother and the baby.
That would seem to contradict everything I just said.
Yeah.
About, yeah, so it's entirely possible I'm remembering it wrong.
Cesareans also increase the risk of dangerous abnormalities in the placenta during later pregnancies, which can cause hemorrhaging and lead to hysterectomy. Repeated cesareans can make it risky to even impossible to have a large family. So it's a highly invasive surgery. This woman did not want to sign a pre-consent form. That played a huge role in the court's decision, okay? I want you guys to keep that in mind. And I don't think that it should have. I don't think that the judge should have used that information to make a ruling. And that's just my stance on this story. Anyway, all right. I'm glad that we came back to that and cleared a few things up.
Because a lot of people cared about that.
A lot of people do care. And, you know, let me just say something about our audience. I love that they hold us accountable to stories and they say, look, you covered this story in a certain way. We'd like you to bring more information to it. And, you know, I hope that I did. And I hope you guys, you know, feel satisfied with that.
Right.
Okay?
I'm certainly satisfied.
All right, let's go on to the next story. Let's have a little fun. So right now, students who just took the SAT are extremely upset.
Let me say this one thing, because this is, who knows, this is at childbirth.org, but it has an org. And the once true adage, it says here, of once a cesarean, always a cesarean, has been discarded. So maybe that way of thinking is no longer true, and then you could have what's known as a VBAC.
What is that?
Vaginal birth after cesarean.
Oh, interesting. All right, all right.
So anyway, so I'm sure that all the mothers there who were relying on me for their advice for childbirth.
For birthing advice.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'd straighten that out.
Okay. Okay, you're going to love this next story, Ben, because the two of us have a great disdain for the SAT.
Yeah, we do.
We
yes.
do. Okay, so students who just took the SAT are extremely upset because one of their essay questions asked them about reality television, okay? And all of these students are thinking that they're going to answer questions of a higher caliber. So they're just like, why are we being asked questions about reality TV? You know, they're assuming that A, we have a TV, and B, we watch reality television.
Right.
Right? So I'm going to read you the question.
Okay.
The people who create the SAT and pick the question say that even if you don't watch reality television, you can still answer this question. So I'm going to read you the question and you tell me whether or not you agree with them.
Okay, fantastic.
So reality television programs which feature real people engaged in real activities rather than professional actors performing scripted scenes are increasingly popular. These shows depict ordinary people competing in everything from singing and dancing to losing weight or just living their everyday lives. Most people believe that the reality these shows portray is authentic, but they are being misled. How authentic can these shows be when producers design challenges for the participants and then editors alter film scenes? Do people benefit from forms of entertainment that's so-called reality, or are such forms of entertainment harmful?
I hope this is an essay question.
This is an,
okay?
This is an essay question.
I was going to say, get to the question. Jesus Christ. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a fair question.
I think it's a fair question as well, because here's the thing, even if you don't watch reality TV, it gives you a summary of what reality television is. And they ask you whether or not it's harmful to society. So you can definitely answer that question, even if you haven't watched reality television. However, if you are a person who has watched reality TV, you'll have an easier time finding specific answers to make your essay more insightful.
Yeah, I don't know how they grade that. I don't even think that that's the case. I can't imagine that references to Snooki increase. No, I imagine that, there's no way a smart kid can't give a thoughtful answer to that question, whether they've seen reality TV or not. I mean, first of all, the SAT is going to ask you essay questions about which you're not an expert in. I mean, they're going to ask you questions about the idea that you can't discuss sort of important trends in modern media because you haven't watched reality TV, that seems ridiculous. I feel like that's a totally legitimate question.
Right,
On a bogus test, but a
legitimate
question.
And the most important part about answering the essay portion of the SAT is to show that A, you can spell, and B, you know grammar. You know how to construct an essay, and you know how to do it in a smart.
Yeah, you make an argument and then you back it up.
Right,
That's all.
exactly.
You don't need to back it up by referencing the situation.
Right, exactly. And the students are super upset about it, though. And
I don't care.
you don't care at all?
I don't care about the student. I care about the story. I don't care about the students being upset. Mm-hmm. I don't care about
I care about the students being upset, and I'll tell you why. Because I was one of those students who was upset.
Right.
Like it sucks that this is what determines where your college career is headed.
Oh, no. Again, if you're upset about the SAT, I'm with you. I don't care about students upset about the question.
Mm-hmm.
Like specific. I don't care about people. I'm tired of, I'm done with people being upset about anything.
Okay.
Like us,
All right.
us reacting to people being upset. So you're upset. Be upset.
Mm-hmm.
But the test itself, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. The test itself is terrible, and I don't think anyone should be able to, or anyone should be forced to take it.
Whenever we do an SAC story, I like to find this because this is always fun. It's a reading comprehension practice test.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and so I'd like to read some of it to you, and then there's no way I can get through the whole thing. You'll kill yourself. But because I've read the first line,
Okay, go ahead.
and I'm getting the memory, so I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about. Again, it's an extract from a book written 60 years ago by a British scientist, in which he considers the relationship between science and society.
Disaster.
I'm so bummed out. And then they're going to ask you they're always like, what's the best title for this? And I'm like, this is the dullest thing I've ever read and I can't finish it. So anyway, the pioneers of the teaching of science imagined that its introduction into education would remove the conventionality, artificiality, and backwards lookingness which were characteristic of classical studies, but they were gravely disappointed. I'm gone. I've checked out. At this point, and backwards lookingness, which were characteristic, like when I was 17, I'd be like, backward lookingness. Okay, Ricky Henderson, Dwayne Murphy batted second, Tony Armstrong. Well, I guess he'd hit fourth, so we need a number 3. I'm gone. I'm out to lunch. The moment has totally passed.
Right.
The second paragraph begins. By the way, this paragraph continues. So too in their time had the humanists thought that the study of the classical authors in the original would banish at once the dull pedantry and superstition of medieval scholasticism. The professional schoolmaster was a match for both of them and has almost managed to make the understanding of chemical reactions as dull and as dogmatic an affair as the reading of Virgil's Aeneid.
What?
Come on!
I know. And that's what determines whether or not an 18-year-old gets into college.
And by the way, I've already mispronounced, and now I've mocked myself by mispronouncing Virgil's work, I'm sure. Okay, so here's the first question that they have here. The author implies that the, quote, professional schoolmaster has A, no interest in science, B, thwarted attempts to enliven education, C, aided true learning, D, supported the humanists, E, been a pioneer in both science and humanities. Like, I guess you can go back and get an answer to these things.
Right.
But I've so checked out that I'm so bored at this point and frustrated at my own inability to comprehend.
Yeah, and not only that, you got to keep in mind, if you know that there's no time limit, I think that you can make it happen. You can go back, you have it right in front of you, so you can read the question, go back, and answer the question perfectly. But at the same time, you have someone in the front of the classroom who's monitoring the test going, 30 minutes, 15 minutes,
and
10 minutes, and in the meantime, you're like, okay, gotta read.
And once you finish that one, there's another frickin' thing behind it. Last question. All of the following can be inferred from the text except A, at the time of the writing, not all children received a secondary school education. B, the author finds chemical reactions interesting. C, science teaching has imparted some knowledge of facts to some children. D, the author believes that many school teachers are authoritarian. E, it is relatively easy to learn scientific method. First of all, who has an E? Like, I got it. A, B, C, D. And we're done.
Right.
You can't ask an E. E is just mean and petty. Fuck them.
Whenever we have these conversations, I seem to be more on the other side of the test.
Yeah.
As you guys know. But there was like what I always thought was a strategy, and of course the problem is because Anna, you freaked out when you're taking it, and that makes you go crazy. So when I would read stuff like this, and I had the same thought, it's not like I loved these questions. I would read them and go, oh, they're just this is a time waster. They're trying to throw me off. They're trying to keep me from whatever. Like I'm thinking these are tactics to get me from doing well. So on stuff like this, as long as it wasn't a big part, I'd be like, okay, let's answer these real fast. I'm gonna get a half a thought, answer them really fast. I might be right, I might not, but it's not gonna kill me. What I have to do is finish this and do the parts right that I
But
know I'm doing
reading
right.
comprehension is a big part of it, and you can't just guess because
Because
there's
they-
a freaking E.
Not only that, they also penalize you if you get an answer wrong.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, I'm not saying just don't look at it all, but I'm saying like to not focus and go, oh my God, I can't believe they're asking me this. Just go, oh, this is a hurdle, you know, and maybe think halfway about it. Don't try and figure an exact answer for this stupid question. They know it's stupid, you know. They know this is a ridiculous question
Right.
and boring as hell.
I think it's Aeneid. I think it's Virgil's Aeneid. It's the dullest. It's literally the dullest thing I've ever read.
No, but
I can't
that's-
believe the one I found was so perfectly exemplary of exactly what was wrong when I took this.
This is what we should tell those little assholes that are complaining about reality TV questions. Be happy you're getting that
All right,
one.
fine. You want to answer this question, Dick?
You know what? I think that's the best point I've heard all year. That's a good. Yeah, I'm no longer concerned with them being upset.
Yeah, come on.
Okay,
That reality TV, that's a fun question to answer at least.
that is a fun question to answer. All right, I agree.
Yeah, and then you could, by the
I've
way,
changed my stance
last
on
thing,
that.
we got to move on from that, but you could start that with, I don't watch reality television, and here's why. And then you've given an answer.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. Problem solved.